live stream's underway, and we're ready to go again. We resume with item number 37, 355 Coxwell Avenue. On this application, the panel has before it submitted materials by the applicant. There is a revised set of plans submitted by the agent on 28 September. Revised diagram 3 and revised map 2. There's a cover letter from the agent from 2 September. There's an arborist report from July. Presentation materials received on 29 September. And 2 site-specific bylaws. Plus there is a staff report from Urban Forestry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, city staff also received this morning a support letter from Starlight Investments, who are the owners of 1636 Gerrard Street East.
Thank you. Okay then. So we'll have the agent join us. Agent, please join us and state your name.
Lindsay Dale Harris, partner at Bousfield, the agent for the applicant.
Good afternoon.
And I believe you have the detailed presentation material as part of your material, which Bousfield's prepared.
Yes, if you want to draw on that, you just have to call on staff to draw it up for you.
Yes.
There it is.
We prepared this presentation because we wanted to show the committee the type of development which is being proposed, the very important purpose for these variance requests, and the really important social benefit which will result through the approval of this application. And just by way of background, there was originally an application by a co-op, Instead Cooperative Housing, and it had an approval for a development of a 6-story building with the same number of units, a slightly different configuration, and this was approved, and the variances were approved by the committee. Subsequently, it was purchased by Habitat for Humanity, and Habitat has a slightly different client mix in terms of who is going to live here, what kind of units they need, what kind of support facilities they need. And they determined that they didn't need any retail uses on the ground floor. They needed slightly bigger units. They wanted slightly bigger units. They did not have a demand for indoor amenity space, but they did have demand for a slightly larger amenity space on the roof. The overall building height is actually slightly lower, and they have some balconies which are proposed on the east side, which is why it was so important to have the letter of support from Starlight, who owns the building to the east. So the building extends a little further to the closer to the laneway. It has less indoor amenity space. It has excellent outdoor amenity space, and it will provide 33 outstanding units through the Habitat for Humanity program. There is a representative from Habitat to speak to it if you would like, and I believe there is also a representative for the architect if you had particular interest about, how the building was designed and why it is the way it is. But it is an excellent proposal. It's going to serve a great need, and we've worked very, very hard with city staff to come up with a good plan for these 33 residential units.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's just check with the panel. If you have questions, you can address them to this speaker or to the architect. If not, anyone wishes to move forward with a motion, that's okay also. Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yes, I like to move for a motion because I feel there's excellent development, and also I trust the Habitat for Humanity is actually promoting affordable housing in the community, and I'm in support of that, and also with the subject to forestry condition number 1, I move for approval.
Very good. Thank you. Is there a second? It is seconded by Mr. Chang. Moved and seconded to approve, subject to forestry. Show of hands, please. Motion is carried. The application is so approved. And we move along past the two applications, 38 and 39, both deferred to number 40 and 40A and B. 831 Logan Avenue, which consists of
Sir,
a...
I declared an interest, so I'm going to step out of the meeting now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So this consists of a severance request plus 2 related minor variance requests for the 2 severed properties. Okay. And on this application, we do have speakers in opposition, so we'll ask the agent to join us. By stating your name, please.
Hello, Craig Race, architect and applicant.
Hello, good afternoon. Okay, Craig, you have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead now, please.
Our supporting material, please be brought up, Mr. Chair. Also, I apologize in advance for any noise in the background. I'm home alone with my kids. I wasn't expecting this to start so late. So start with on the second page, please. The proposal before you today is a conversion of an existing 2-story structure into a small detached home by adding a side and upper addition. It will become one of a cluster of 4 coach houses at the north edge of Withrow Park, where a pattern has been established to preserve and convert existing brick structures. Next page, please. Although we call this a coach house, really it's simply a detached home. Like the existing coach house neighbors, it will front on McConnell Avenue with services, parking, and pedestrian access from McConnell. And the historic brick structures have established a charming streetscape along the park. This proposal seeks to maintain the existing brick structure with an addition that's complementary but contrasting, much like the immediate neighbor to the east. Next page, please. So the existing house in this proposal, the main house, will remain unaltered. We included it here to illustrate the aesthetic intent and the thought process we undertook with our design of the coach house. Specifically, we want to preserve and protect the existing brick structure and create a contemporary build form that uses unique geometry to improve sun exposure and reduce perceived massing to the north, as well as create a home that respects the pedestrian realm to the south. Next page, please. So we've taken that design thinking we put into the main house, into the coach house, the critical features being a reduced roof height at the northwest corner and alignment with a stepped-in neighbor to the east. Our goal was really to create special architecture and do so while respecting build form context and creating a functional new home with a welcoming front door that connects it to the neighborhood. Next page, please. So I'll just quickly go through the variances. There are 3 associated with the main house. Like I said, the main house will not change. It's being preserved as it stands today. Next page, please. For the coach house, there are a total of 8 variances. 3 of the variances are associated with lot area and FSI, and we specifically crafted these to align with the existing adjacent coach houses. in terms of site dimension and the immediate neighbor's FSI. Obviously, this proposal is relatively unique for the area, although there are actually many coach houses nearby in the Riverdale neighborhood. So we crafted the design to follow the immediate patterns established by these adjacent coach houses. Next page, please. This is true for setbacks as well. All 4 of the existing coach houses have essentially a 0 lot line condition, which works because of how small the properties are and because they're using existing brick structures. So each of these house conversions has maintained existing setbacks to streets and sidewalks, ensuring clearances are not an issue. Next page, please. One of the variances is for a garage opening in the front wall. This is an established pattern for all of the other adjacent coach houses, and we believe it will help preserve street parking by maintaining a garage in the structure. In addition, main wall height, there's a requirement for 7.5 meters for the main wall. We followed that at the northwest corner where sun is most important. We've included a sun study to support this. The other corners all align with the existing neighbor or don't have any shadow or build form impacts, and were designed to create a more complete streetscape along McConnell. Next page, please. So the homeowners undertook a thorough outreach program to the neighbors. This map illustrates their door knocking campaign. Almost all the houses along Logan, who are the ones that are actually impacted by changes to the streetscape and build form impacts, are supportive. We're aware of the letter of opposition from Fenwick Avenue. We prepared a shadow study to ensure those neighbors are not impacted by sunlight or massing impacts. This was mostly mitigated, to be honest, by the 3 existing coach houses between the subject property and all of those houses on Fenwick. In addition, our office undertook outreach to the City of Toronto, urban forestry, and community planning. Forestry advised us to proceed with the carport design you're seeing. And although there's a planning report for this file, planning is hamstrung to write such a report for all projects of this nature. We collaborated with their office to minimize main wall height, align with the neighbor to the east, and maintain parking for both properties. I'm happy to discuss this further because we did specifically craft this proposal with their feedback.
I'll ask you to make your final comment now, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next page, please. I'll conclude by saying this is a unique opportunity to create a new house in a well-established neighborhood. And its uniqueness is why we're here. The lot pattern and minor variances are specialized to this cluster of coach houses, and we want to celebrate that unique site with unique architecture. We want to preserve the existing structure and really put a new face onto this cluster of homes across from the park. We think this proposal fulfills the intent of the OP and passes the core test.
Your time is up.
What we really... Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So, panel members, are there questions now for the applicant? Go ahead, Ms. Chan.
Shall we wait for other speakers to do their presentation before we ask questions, or you want
Well,
me?
I have a question I want to put to the speaker. There are 3 registered speakers, if I remember correctly, but I'd like to put a question now to the applicant, and I'll ask for the drawing, one of the drawings that shows the it shows the existing house, the existing coach house, plus the new coach house, sort of from the southwest, from an elevated view in the southwest. If you go back through the drawings, I couldn't see a title on it. Go back a little further, please. Okay, that will do it. Okay. So, well, what I want to ask you, applicant, I want to make sure, because I want to make sure I'm sure. Today, is it true that the house that faces onto Logan has a long backyard, and that backyard, the existing coach house at the back of the backyard, that belongs on the same property? It's part of the same property as the house on Logan?
Yes, that is correct.
And so okay. So your proposal is to sever the lot and then construct as this drawing shows, and the end result will be that on the eastern portion of the lot there'll be the existing coach house will be there, and plus there'll be a new coach house that you're your proposal, which will be built right up tight against it, almost like a semi-detached, but built up right tight to the existing coach house, but a separate dwelling.
Yeah, so, sorry, I might have misspoken. So the existing 3-story coach house that's shaded in white,
Yeah.
in the top diagram, that is not part of this property. It's already on its own detached lot that's owned by someone else. It's only the gray shaded 2-story structure that's currently on the subject property. And that's the one we're proposing to do a side and top addition and then sever into a new parcel that would mimic that existing detached coach house that's shaded in white.
And that's going to belong to the house on Logan. It's going to be a lane.
No, sir, it will become an independent property.
So there are going to be 3 independent properties or 2 independent properties at the end. End of the day, how many independent properties, including the house on Logan? The house on Logan, and how many additional?
So this proposal will take 1 property and make it into 2. Now, it's important to note that the existing 3-story coach house shaded in white is already on a detached property that is separate and not part of this application. And on the other side of the laneway, there are 2 other existing coach homes. None of those are part of this application. They're just contextual.
Okay, go slowly for me here, because this is the crux of my understanding. So the coach house that I'm looking at in this drawing to the right, the existing 3-story coach house.
Yes.
Now I understand better. That's not part of your proposal at all. It's a separately standing, distinct property.
That is correct. That is owned by someone
That
else.
helps me now. Okay. So, and the portion that appears to be attached to it, the 2-story coach house that's being highlighted now, that currently is it connected to that coach house to the, no, it's not. It's a separate building, simply, you explain it to me. So tell me about the,
Yes, Mr. Chair, they do share a party wall,
the party wall,
but it is a separate structure.
separate structure.
And it's currently on the same property as the main house at 831 Logan.
It's part of that property. Okay.
Yes.
And the part shaded in lavender is going to become part of, it's going to become integral with the 2-story coach house.
Yes, sir. The only part that is a little different is the cantilevered carport that you'll see extending off the left side. That will remain on the property of the main house at 831 Logan and will be the carport that covers the parking for the main house.
Well, the cantilevered parking is for the main house on Logan.
Yes, but you can see there's a blue property line drawn immediately off the face of the lavender form. That's the
I get it.
new
Now I get it.
lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Clear as mud, right, Mr. Chair?
Thank you very much. As you say, it's a
So-
very, very unique lot. Okay. Ms. Chan, go
So-
ahead.
Yeah, you raised, the applicant raised an interesting question. So after the severance, who owns the canopy?
It will become a separate property that will likely go up for sale, or certainly be.
No, I'm talking about the canopy. The coach house will own it, or the original house will own it? Because the carport belongs to the.
Apologies, the main house will continue to own the carport.
The canopy.
That's
Which is,
correct, yes.
which is part of the coach house, in terms of the construction, it's just like a cantilever part of the house. So it will be owned by someone else. You're talking about.
That's correct. So we're essentially creating a new party wall, and the
Understand.
carport roof will be cantilevered from the shared party wall.
Understand, yeah. Actually, since Mr. Chairman asked a question, I do have another question, but I thought I was going to wait. But you keep mentioning that there are many coach houses in the neighborhood, besides the one that you're building against. where are these coach houses very common? You have mentioned. Are
So
they,
if we could go to the next page, please.
yeah.
So you'll see the 3 gray squares are existing coach houses, and those bottom 2 pictures are the 2 that front onto McConnell Avenue.
Oh, they already been built. Those, yeah. And they were just garages along that's behind these brick houses are just garages.
That's right. All 3 of those gray highlighted coach houses have a garage at grade and then living space above.
Mm-hmm. But the other coach houses, they are still part of the main house. They're not being served, just like similar to what you're trying to do, right? They actually, and that's why they're called coach houses.
That's correct. They are on separate properties.
Mm-hmm.
They get services from McConnell Avenue, and they have street addresses on McConnell Avenue, much like we were proposing.
Yeah, I guess
They are unique from a laneway suite in that respect.
I see. So after the severance, your house, the coach house is no longer called coach house, right? It's like the townhouse or something.
Yeah, that's correct. Essentially, it's more like a semi-detached home. It's more the size of the lot that would characterize it as a coach house, and the fact that it's an existing historic brick structure that we're preserving. It was originally used for coaches, presumably.
Okay, great. Okay.
Okay, let's go on then to the registered speakers who are ready to, who's standing by. And we'll go to,
Jeff Tomlin, you've been unmuted, you can go ahead.
okay, join us please by stating your name.
It's Jeff Tomlin.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Jeff, you have
Hi, good afternoon.
You have 5 minutes to address your concerns to the panel. Go ahead, please.
Right now, my main concerns are to do with the party wall and the construction process and how that will occur.
So Jeff, why don't you, basically, are you speaking in opposition to the?
I'm neutral right now to the proposal.
So you're just posing a question to the applicant?
Yes.
And your question is?
Is just to do with the construction process and the party wall permit and what the plans are with respect to that.
Would you like me to speak to this, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So this is essentially a building permit issue. We will not be affecting the structure of the wall for any new construction. The existing party wall will be maintained, and then all new construction will be built off of it on new structure, so that we don't undermine any existing structure.
Okay, so there'll be no basement or anything digging.
Correct. There is no basement proposed here. That was one of the issues we reviewed with urban forestry, because there's likely to be a tree root structure that we need to preserve.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on to the next registered speaker.
Wendy Gray, you've been unmuted, you can go ahead.
Hi there. Yes, my name's Wendy Gray, and I just wanted to, if you could pull up our file, the one for part 2, that would be super. That's not mine. No, that's not mine. Yes, that's the part, the other part. Should be one more. Yes. Just to begin with, I just just wanted to mention that the 2 letters that we submitted in response to the 3 requests, the 3 applications, represent the unified view of 17 residents in the immediate area around the proposed development. And these are a collection of concerns assembled through multiple discussions among neighbors, most of whom have lived here many, many years. This is not a petition that was just brought door to door. This was everybody's view put together in a single document with everybody's signature. And you'll see that many of our objections match those that were forwarded by the community planner's objection, where they have recommended to not move forward with any of the 3 applications.
You could help us, Wendy, by explaining the impact that it's going to have if it happened to go through. What would the impact be that you're concerned about?
Well, there is the precedent. One of the things that, in the original request, the application, it says that the committee needs to be satisfied that the variances requested are minor, when in fact they are not minor. If you look at number 3, for example, on our thing, the variance requested for the floor space permitted on that lot side is 415% larger than the allowable floor space.
Okay, let me, Wendy, just interrupt for a moment because it's so important. I understand about the numerical values, but we also, when we're considering whether something is minor or not, we consider it by its impact also. Is the impact minor or is the impact major? And I'm asking you now to help us with the impact on the neighborhood, on the street, on the individual lot, on living nearby. What's the impact going to be?
We believe the impact will be significant. It's going to create a bit of a wall on McConnell. It's a very busy street where there is considerable pedestrian traffic going back and forth between 2 elementary schools, the park and the Withrow market. So the construction alone, I know that's not the issue here, but that is a concern of ours. But this wall and the density for this area is unprecedented, and the severing of the lot will create an even denser proportion on the existing home on the new smaller lot. So it's a double whammy there. The fact that we've all been asked to disconnect our downspouts and not have them run, like and the fact that there is no, if you look at number 4 and number 6, the request is for 0 rear yard setback and 0 front yard soft landscaping. So there is no, it's reducing the amount of area for water to run off, and we've already had issues of flooding in our neighborhood, a considerable amount. So these are genuine concerns of ours, and we have talked to our neighbors who have also signed this, who are concerned about the light, the density, the lack of airflow, and just the precedent it sets. Like the other coach houses that are referred to are existing. They're not separate homes, as was mentioned. They are coach houses. They were garages that are their existing footprint that have been there for over 100 years, and they have not been developed beyond changing, the garage into like a home office or something. So this is changing the precedent.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to ask you, are those other coach houses what we at the committee might refer to as laneway suites?
No, certainly not the one that fronts the laneway. Is strictly a
no,
garage.
the 2 across the laneway that have been there for 100 years.
Yes.
They still belong. They still belong to the house on the house.
Yes, they do. They both belong to their respective houses. They have not been severed at all. They are existing footprints on those properties, and there aren't that many of them on that laneway at all that I can think of. So it's going to change things considerably.
That's been very helpful for me understanding the situation. Any questions for this speaker panel members? Thank you very much, Wendy. Okay.
Mr. Chair, the last speaker is not here despite emailing. So that's all we have.
So you still have one speaker. You're gonna give them a try?
We already have, and they're not here.
Not here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay then. Well, okay. Let's go back then to the agent, and he answered directly the question from the first speaker, but if you could answer or respond to what the most recent speaker raised. This speaker brought up a couple of points. One was this effect of the proposal creating a wall, kind of a wall along the street facing the park, but concern about the unprecedented build or density of building on the site that this would result in, and also the fact that the resulting property, the coach house, would have zero ability to absorb any stormwater. And she also pointed out that across the laneway, those two properties, those two other so-called coach houses, they belong to the houses that on those lots, so they are what, you know, and unless I've got it wrong, those are what I would refer to as a laneway suite in today's parlance. But those are the things I'll ask you to address. Unprecedented density, complete lack of stormwater, ability to handle stormwater by one of the proposed lots, and the fact that it creates this wall on the street type of effect.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start by speaking to the wall on the street concept. That's actually what we were trying to do. So the northwest corner of the building is intentionally dropped to minimize shadow effects on adjacent properties. But the south facade of the house is designed to create a cohesive street wall across from the park. So that was actually an intention of both. I'm so sorry, Mr. Chair. Can you please give me 1 minute to deal with my children? I'm so sorry about this.
Take your time and go and do that. We'll be waiting for you.
I'm so sorry about that, Mr. Chair. So part of the intent of the facade was to create a cohesive streetscape across from the park. This has been started by the adjacent coach houses fronting onto the park. So that was actually an intention. And we did so in a way that minimizes shadow on the neighbors while also creating that streetscape. In terms of the precedent this will set, we're following a precedent here. So the immediate neighbor has established lot size, setback, setback side, all the things that we use to craft the size and shape of our proposal. So I disagree with that, and I think we're actually reinforcing an existing precedent that's been set by the adjacent houses. In terms of stormwater, Mr. Chair, we have to work with the building department to ensure that we don't discharge stormwater onto adjacent properties. We will resolve that through the existing rear yard at 831 Logan, which already retains the stormwater runoff from the existing structure and the site. So I really want to see that being used. And it's something we have to comply with at permit stage regardless. Were there any other points I should address, Mr. Chair?
Well, one point that was important, I thought, was a different take on the matter than the one that you presented me with, and that was that those two so-called coach houses across the laneway are in fact still, they belong to the houses that they're associated with.
Yes.
They are not distinct properties of record. They are basically garage, well, they are what we would
Yes,
now call a laneway suite at the back of the house.
Thank
And
you.
that's
So
what I'm-
again, the immediate pattern that we're following is the house to the east. That is a detached property with an address on the street. That's also the case for the property on the other side of the lane. It may not be a detached property, but it does have independent services from McConnell and a mailing address and front door on McConnell. And these are different than a laneway suite, not only in our case because we are not on a laneway and we would never be allowed to get a laneway suite, but because they're existing structures that we're retrofitting to become new homes. And that's actually something that the official plan has language in the neighborhood section that, sorry about this. Like the official plan does encourage adaptation of existing former non-residential structures to add to the quality of neighborhood life by filling in the gaps. So we were purposely fulfilling the official plan's requirements with this proposal.
Questions for the applicant, panel members? Okay. At this stage then, I think we're ready to take the application into committee for discussion.
I will start first.
Go ahead, Darren.
I personally think that, I don't know why you keep calling it coach house, but I think the project itself is actually quite interesting and very sensitive. I call it more like an urban infill project with creating a new unit. And when you look at those high numbers on the second listing, part 2, because the lot size is so small now, and that's why you have a very high floor space index, the FSI. So, and I think you can make a case that yes, there is no precedent case, but then because there's no other site in this or no other lot in this overall neighborhood with a similar context, you have a very, very unique context, which you have a park, you are facing a road, so that means you're kind of creating a unit in the middle of the road between two lots. That's how I look at it, and I think it's a very creative way to create or infill an empty space along the street. And I trust that the engineering development department in the city of Toronto will guide you on dealing with the stormwater management. It's
Excuse me.
pretty straightforward for me.
Sorry,
So I
sorry to
fully
interrupt,
support this
Mr. Chair.
application.
Yes?
I'm sorry, Erin, as well. It seems that there's another speaker in objection in the hearing room. She's just having some issues that I'm trying to resolve right now.
There's another speaker wishing to speak on this one?
It seems like that. I'm just waiting for confirmation of her phone number.
Okay.
Okay.
We should try to get
I guess
her.
I'll take
But
back
we
my
should
vote.
try to get her if we can, so let's just pause for a few moments while we see if this speaker.
Is this Janetta
Sorry,
Hoffman?
Mr. Chair, I think I have my children dealt with, so I can respond to any comments now again. I apologize for that, sir.
Please don't apologize for that, we're just.
Janetta Hoffman, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Okay, Janetta, just so we
Yeah.
clarify where we are, I'm going to let you speak. In fact, well, I'm not sure how it got to be that you were delayed. Perhaps it was our fault. So I am going to let you speak. So panel members, pardon me, we're going to go back out of committee now to allow another speaker to speak, and let's do that now. Janetta, you have 5 minutes to address the panel if you need to do so. Go
Thank you.
ahead.
I do want to clarify I've been on the phone for 2 hours listening, and for some reason, because I dialed in, it wouldn't let me
I'm glad you
get
got
it.
your
I've been on
chance.
the phone.
I'm sorry, and I'm
Okay.
glad you got your chance.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, I can sort of see where we're going here. I mean, besides the fact that the city planning department and the director of community planning for Toronto and East York have collectively suggested that you refuse all of the applications for this property. I think you're asking about impact. There's so many reasons, in our opinion, not to approve this application, but the general impact, the biggest impact of all, is the severing of the lots. Most of us live in smaller 2 or 3-story semi-detached homes. We have very narrow lots. Our lots back onto each other, so the houses on Logan back on their backyards back onto our backyards on Fenwick Avenue. We feel that the precedent that this will set, if they are allowed to sever the lot and build a second dwelling on that property, because their lot is already shorter than the other lots on the block because of the existing coach house on the corner, which is a separate address. We feel the precedent that that will set is very dangerous. We don't want people down the lane suddenly putting up extra houses all the way along. We live close to our neighbors. We have small lots. This option that they're proposing, we think, is a very dangerous precedent for our neighborhood. It's also opposed to the bylaw zoning and the neighborhood definitions in the city's official plan. I would like to point out that the people who provided so-called letters of support, really they were letters of no objection, and contrary to what the homeowner is stating, none of those people have any impact from this proposed development. They all live primarily on the west side of Logan Avenue. All of this stuff is happening on the east side and the north side of McConnell Avenue. They won't even see it. It's the people on Fenwick, the people who go up and down the lane between Fenwick and Logan. We are the people who are impacted by this, and we are the people who've signed the signatories on the petition. One of his so-called supporters actually lives 4 blocks south of the house in question on Logan Avenue. So our main objection, I had lots of other things to say, but we don't want to see our spaces being encroached on by taller and bigger new builds and additional dwellings. We need the space and the open space and the soft landscaping between our homes in order to maintain the enjoyment of our homes and be good neighbors. So that is the number one objection to this, is the severing of the lot, the precedent that would set in our neighborhood. It would just be unprecedented, and we think it would be a very bad thing for the neighborhoods, besides the grossly oversized home that is already on that lot. Now he wants to sever the lot again, and so it'll be an even bigger home on a smaller lot. So both of those things we object to very strongly.
Janetta, can you please state your address?
10 Fenwick Avenue.
Thank you.
Panel members, do you have questions for this speaker? No? Thank you for waiting. Thank you for making sure that we heard what you had to say. And we'll go back, we'll give the applicant, in fairness, we'll give the applicant a chance to respond and rebut. Applicant, this speaker's concern relates to the result of the severance, the size of the resulting 2 lots, the undersized result of those 2 lots, and concern about that from people who live nearby. How do you respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So going back to the point of built form impact, for the neighbors on Fenwick, there will be 0 impact on those properties. Our shadow studies and massive studies have concluded that. And again, the main reason for that is because there are 3 existing brick coach houses that have been in place for decades between this subject property and all of those houses. So we're very confident that they will have no impact from this project. In terms of the precedent setting, again, we're following the immediately adjacent context. But to go beyond that, this is the precedent we want to be setting. We are trying to add a new house to an already vibrant neighborhood in the city. We're trying to do it in a way where the design is as sensitive as we could possibly be to sunlight and low form massing concerns. And we try to do it with cool architecture, for whatever that counts for. I think proposals like this are exactly the kind of thing we need to be setting precedents within the city, so that we can add small new houses to this neighborhood and help improve our housing landscape for new owners.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay then. Checking with staff, we have looked after all of the speakers. Thank you. Good thing that we did catch ourselves on that and get through to that speaker. Okay, so we're back to where we will go back into committee now. Aaron was just wrapping up.
Right.
Did you have more to say, Aaron?
Well, I just want to add that I did read through the planning staff report. I understand the concerns of the neighbors, but if you just look at the overall plans, I mean the map or the overall block plans, you zoom out a little bit, you cannot find another lot with a similar situation where you're at an intersection with a one-way street, where you have a park across you, so you're not really creating any disruption to anyone in front of you, and an empty space that you can actually create a new lot that is good for a family. I think this is a very smart infill project that we need in our city. I think it's a good precedent case, and it wouldn't create a cascade effect to the neighborhood, because I can't find any other laws can do something similar. Maybe in another area of the Toronto, but definitely not in this neighborhood. So for my point of view, I would fully support this application.
Thank you. Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Okay, I have different view, and actually it's going back to the official plan, the intent of creating bylaws so that people can develop layman houses and coach houses, is to so that we can increase, raise more density, but increase the housing stock. Having said that, I have no problem with the build form or the proposal, and actually very creative, very good, well designed. But I do have a lot of problems, but this is the major problem that I cannot support the proposal, is the surface, which means that anyone, the intent of creating the bylaw allowing coach houses or is part of the main house, so that even they have allowance when you calculating the coverage of the lot is always in pair with the main house, but the surface is actually go against the official plan. I think, which means that you can actually separate. What is the difference between people can actually surface their main house and sell it separately from the main house, right? But that's not the intent of the official plan. That's why I'm against it. Yeah.
Okay. And that's the reason why at the very beginning of my intro, I mentioned that probably the applicant shouldn't call it a coach house or a laneway house. It's not. It's facing a street. It's facing a street, and in that case, it's an urban infill project. It's a new development, and I'm agreeing or supporting this development based on that direction, not based on the fact that it is above to a laneway. It's actually adjacent to a street with an open space across, which create a very unique opportunity that I don't think, and I think this is a certain type of organic growth of our city that, that today it happens. We have this kind of lot, and have someone who is interested to do this kind of experiment, and I would like to support. I guess that's I will have to make a motion to support it. So the question is this you and me? How are we going to proceed?
No. The chairman's still he's still sitting here.
Right, okay, so I'll make a motion.
Okay.
To
So
support.
I'd like to, just so you know. No, it's my turn now. We're in committee. You've each had your turn. So my turn now. I should say that I will not be able to support the application because I don't think it satisfies or is in line with the spirit of the official plan. I am concerned that one of these lots has the capacity to absorb zero stormwater. The severance, I think Ms. Chan hit it there. She said when she talked about the severance being at the crux of the issue, it is in creating these two very small lots. I agree with what one of the callers had to say with respect to that. So I won't be able to support this this application either. But we are now looking for a motion, so it's up to one of you to make a motion.
But as Ms. Chen, you can motion it, because I'm going to make a motion to support, which doesn't make sense now, so maybe you will.
Okay, let me repeat what my standpoint is. I think naming the coach house is a red herring. You know, it's not the issue. The issue here is the surface. And I think that by bringing in, they said the existing coach house and then laneway house development, that is not part of the official plan spirit, which is to increase housing stock within your property. And I think that this is an attempt to actually surface the existing lot and then create a very, very tight lot, and it's against the spirit of the laneway house anyway. I agree, if they do not apply for the surface, I can support the proposal, honestly, 100%. But since we cannot approve the variances without approving the surface, so I cannot support it. That's
Okay, I'm looking to one of you to make a motion then.
okay. I will make a motion to refuse the application 14A, B, and C.
Okay, motion to refuse. I, in this case, will second that being necessitated by the fact that we are a panel of only 3. So I second that motion. Moved and seconded to refuse. Those in favor, show of hands, please. Those opposed? Let the record show that Mr. Cheng is in opposition to the motion. The result is that the motion is carried and the application is refused. And with that, the panel moves on to number 41, A, B, and C, 732 Avenue Road. And on this application, the panel is dealing with copy draft survey of plan, other materials submitted by the agent, cover letter from the agent, presentation materials received 27 September from the agent, correspondence from Andrew Dean, agent, waiving pre-circulation, correspondence from Kerry Gordon of Bell, Canada, received 28 September. There is correspondence from community planning and staff reports from engineering and construction and transportation services. Okay, so on number 41, we do have one speaker registered, okay, in opposition. So let's have the agent join us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Last name is Bronskill, B-R-O-N-S-K-I-L-L, first initial D for David, here on behalf of the applicant, and I hope my sound quality is coming through fine.
You're very clear, David. Yeah, just fine. Very good. You have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to take any questions from the committee as I go through this. I actually think it's a relatively simple application, and some of the correspondence submitted on the file, I think, does an excellent job of explaining what's on the site today and what is being proposed, As you can see, it's on the west side of Avenue Road, just to orient yourself in the city. It's just north of Upper Canada College. Some of you who may drive down Avenue Road will either turn left at Chaplin at the gas stations or continue down this street and turn left to get back out to the continuation of Avenue Road coming into the downtown. It's a funny little block here, as the panel well knows. One of the tests of the official plan, policy 4.1.5, is to look at the immediate block. On the west side here, we really just have these two lots, and immediately to the south is a pair of semi-detached houses. In between the properties is a shared driveway, and what's being proposed is to take an existing pair of semi-detached houses on one lot, create two lots, continue the shared driveway, reconstruct the garage that exists on the west or northwest corner of the property, have the two lots. They will be slightly irregular, and thank you to committee staff. If I could leave this on the screen for a minute, this is really helpful. Part one is a slightly smaller lot. Part two, the southern lot, is a slightly bigger lot, and that's because parts 4 and 5 at the back remain with part 2. And so if you live in the new semi-detached house on part 1, you would drive down the driveway that's between the new semi-detached houses and those that exist to the south. You would then have an easement over part 4, and you would be able to access then the garage space that's on your lot at the back of the property. But it means that part 1 is a slightly smaller lot. It also means, of course, its FSI is slightly larger, even though the houses are the same size. It's frankly quite a standard approach for dealing with something like this. I think what's happening here is taking an older, out-of-dated pair of semi-detached houses, constructing two new ones on separate lots. The garage is going to be in the same place. Our client will be living in one of the homes, and then there's an opportunity then to sell the other one on a separate lot. In terms of the variances themselves, we've, through the assistance of Mr. Wengel's office, prepared his usual package of materials for you. One of the excellent drawings that is always in that package shows both an existing house and a green line. It then shows what could be permitted in terms of the zoning envelope and a red line. And I think if you look at it quite carefully, the pair of new semi-detached dwellings frankly correspond very well to that red outline of a permitted zoning envelope. Same thing with the garage. It's being put back in the existing location. Landscaping, Mr. Chair, largely reflects what exists on the site today. And I'm a bit biased, obviously, because I'm here advocating on behalf of the client, but I think the rendering that's been done shows a really attractive streetscape for the two new semi-detached houses. The final thing that I would simply note is, while there are some height variances, in our view they are in keeping with what exists in the neighborhood, and there is a slight slope to the roof, so that although technically these count as 3-story semi-detached dwellings, there's a slight slope at the front which has some of that 3rd story recede, and we think most importantly it's a really good fit in terms of the character of the neighborhood with what exists to the south. So overall, we don't think there are any undue impacts. It's largely replicating what was there, slightly more intense built form, creating two lots so that the semi-detached can be conveyed individually, allowing our client to live in one of them, and I think that goes to the appropriate and desirable nature of the test. So I don't know the nature of the opposition, so I will just reserve any comments for the other speaker, but I'm happy to take any questions. I hope I've outlined the nature of the application and made it clear for you as the hour grows late.
Thank you very much. I think we'll go to the speaker and hear what they have to say first. Welcome back, Ms. Valentini. Glad to have you back once again. And we'll now ask the registered speaker to join us.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Hear you well, yes, thank you. Just slightly quiet. Could you state your name, please?
My name is Nancy McKee. I am a co-owner with my husband at 730 Avenue Road, which shares the mutual drive
Okay,
I actually, sorry?
just to let you know, you're coming across, your transmission is being slightly distorted, just slightly. We can understand, though, if you speak slowly. Go ahead now, you have 5 minutes to address the panel.
Okay. I actually have no problem with the majority of what has been proposed. I don't actually think that the existing dwelling is a semi-detached. It's actually sort of a low-rise apartment building, but that's neither here nor there. Severing the lot is not an issue for us. Our biggest concerns are the request to narrow the mutual drive, which in the 1938 survey did allow for 4 foot, I think 4.5 inches and 4 foot and a quarter inches right of way on each side. Those days the cars were much smaller, and I believe that even given the type of clientele that will be purchasing the houses that are proposed, the likelihood of them having larger SUVs with large mirrors that may or may not retract may present a problem if the driveway is narrow. I know in the back on our side, there are 8, sometimes 9 cars, 2 in, 2 to 3 out on the driveway. And one of the cars is a Volkswagen Atlas, and it has significant difficulty getting up and down the driveway, particularly in the winter. The other concern from that point of view is the size of the garage has been increased, which is, you know, not really an issue if you think about it, but I just wanted to point out that the snow road and trying to get rid of the snow in the winter is very difficult. And the area that is, I guess, the asphalt area in front of the garages on Plan 11 is significantly a portion of where that snow gets put. So if they increase the size of the garages, they're likely to be blocked in on against the fence. The other, I mean, in terms of the height, we are not concerned about that. We are concerned in terms of access during the construction phase, in terms of parking and access to the rear. There are, as I mentioned, 2 sets of tenants in number 728, and myself and my kids live downstairs in ours, and we all need access and parking because there's very little parking on the street. And in the winter, it is a bit of a nightmare, I'm not gonna lie, getting up and down that driveway. The only other thing that concerns me is that the amount of construction and I suppose just the plan for digging down and putting in the lower unit with the side access off the driveway. I mean, it's beautiful. I think that's great. I'm just concerned that our foundation is not cracked or disturbed during the construction phase.
Thank you very much. Questions, panel, for the speaker? Hearing none, we'll return to the agent and offer an opportunity to respond. So, Agent,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
the issues we heard there, we'd like you to respond to. Specifically, major concern is a perceived sense that the mutual drive will become narrower and that this will provide a constant issue for access by larger vehicles, and then also concern about construction issues. But if you could begin by addressing the mutual drive question, please.
I can, Mr. Chair, and first, if I could just through you to the neighbor who stayed, I will make sure that I communicate these concerns to the client. I do appreciate her staying and voicing these concerns into the evening. It's a little bit hard to see it. I don't know if she could see it on this screen. And if I can beg the indulgence of committee staff, thank you with the pointer hand. The dark area is the easement area, or part 6 that sits on my client's property. That dark area, that would be one half of the mutual drive. Part 5 is the other half of the mutual drive. There's a dashed line on the dark area That's exactly the one, thank you. It would appear in red in the materials we've submitted, and that's the zoning outline. There's then a green dashed line that's a little bit to the right of that or to the north of that. Again, thank you to committee staff. That's where the existing structure sits today, and that's where the proposed south wall of the south semi sits. So that part's, it may be that this drawing is slightly confusing because we've got the as of right line on there. So the as of right, absent that shared driveway, would in fact allow the south wall to come a bit further south. Our client's not doing that. The wall is basically coming down and sitting where the existing wall is and respecting part 6 on plan 63R 3919. And I would just say there's a mutual interest in ensuring that that driveway remains functional for modern cars. And so I just wanted to point that out. We also think there's sufficient room in the back. There's still, it is a larger garage, but they're single car garages. We think there is enough room in the back for snow storage to allow appropriate vehicle access in and out of those garages. And I would just say in terms of construction issues, again, I will communicate it to our client to ensure that there is ongoing dialogue, both in terms of construction safety and regarding the issue of ensuring access in accordance with existing legal documents. You know, that's not something we can necessarily just do on a whim. So I will make sure that that is communicated to the client. But in terms of that access issue, Mr. Chair, I believe, and I can submit to this committee, that the existing part 6 is being maintained and not infringed upon.
Thank you.
And I thank committee staff, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but for the Vanna White performance with the hand, it is extremely appreciated at 7:15 in the evening.
Okay, further questions for the applicant panel? Ms. Valentini, go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Valentini.
Thank you. Yep, I'm trying to unmute. Just so I understand then, the next door properties at 728 and 730, Mr. Bronsfield, are those two separate lots? I'm assuming they are, but.
Yes, my understanding is that they are separate lots.
Okay. One other question. There are no variances for lot frontage or size. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. Sorry to interrupt.
No. I just was confused because I thought it said they were undersized lots in the notice. But that was just in the notice for the consent. And then when I looked at the variances, there weren't any variances for that. So I'm
yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I actually double checked that today. I saw the same thing on the notice when and then went back and checked, and there are no variances for lot frontage or lot area.
Thank you.
Ms. Chan, go ahead, please.
Yes, I have a question for the applicant too. Have you have any comment or you agree to the recommendation by the community planning about the mutual driveway, the agreement?
I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, and Ms. Chan. I don't recall a community planning, but maybe I missed it online.
Okay,
There isn't.
Is this? I have it online. It's from. It was, let's say, transportation services have no objection, but they do have a recommendation to that the access to lot A to be secure via a mutual access agreement with lot B to be registered on title in perpetuity. That one.
I saw the ECS report. Oh, sorry, the Transportation Services report.
Yes, that one. Yeah. This one.
A be secured via mutual. Let me just pause on that one for a moment through you, Mr. Chair, because what's a bit odd about the
I think
A secured to be registered on title in perpetuity. The one piece I do find a bit odd, and I'm just pulling up the actual public notice through you, Mr. Chair, just your quick indulgence.
Take a moment,
Because we're creating, as part of this approval, an easement for the purpose of vehicular access over part 4 in the rear yard of part 1. And so I'm not sure what this condition adds beyond the consent we're actually seeking for the easement.
Yeah, I got confused, and because you're a lawyer, I thought you probably understand more better than me.
It could be belts and suspenders. I actually, through you, Mr. Chair, to you, Ms. Chan, don't think it's necessary. But I suppose it's belts and suspenders. In the end, if it was something the committee wanted to impose as a condition, I can see I wouldn't have any significant concerns because the owner is the owner of the lot today, and as part of fulfilling that would essentially, through the creation of the 2 lots, it's not like I've got an unwilling neighbor here that would cause me to have a concern about a condition like that. The 2 parties to this agreement essentially right now are my client. You know, we could find a way to fulfill it.
Yeah. So you think that creating the easement is already will satisfy this condition anyway, right?
I think the easement's sufficient, but in the end, if the committee wanted to impose the condition of transportation services, I wouldn't have a strong concern about such a condition.
Ms. Valentini, question? Go ahead.
I'm just reading the memo. I don't know if it relates to the shared driveway access and whether that's captured in the easement. I don't know. I agree. It seems, you know, like that's the whole point of having the easement. But Mr. Bronskill, is there any issue in terms of the actual access point? I don't know if that's what transportation is referring to, but.
Yeah, it may be that what they would like to do is ensure that there's access over the part 6, that shaded area. I think that exists today, but that being said, I have no issue including the condition because we'll make sure that it's satisfied. It's sort of my path of least resistance on this, and that it's not a condition that I think we'd have any issue satisfying. I'm not convinced it's necessary, but that maybe to do my William Lyon Mackenzie King doesn't mean we don't necessarily impose it. I would be fine to accept it.
Thank you. Okay then. At this point then, if there are no further questions of the applicant, let's take the application into committee. And we can move right to a motion, or we can have discussion. Who would like to speak? We can go right to a motion if that's your intent. It's up to you.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to step in on this one.
Yes.
I actually am in support of both the consent that the severance is being proposed and the variances. In terms of the consent, we see that there are 2 lots adjacent, which are of similar size and in terms of lot pattern, similar lot pattern. And Mr. Bronskill did confirm that these are not undersized lots. So I am supportive of that. I think it meets the requirements for a consent of the Planning Act in terms of our authority to grant it. In terms of the variances, I think the presentation material clearly showed that the request in terms of the footprint of the building is, you know, similar in size to what's currently existing. So I don't think any of the variances requested are going to cause further impact or additional impact to what is currently existing on the property. I think this makes sense, and I'm in support of both the variances for both lots as well. I don't know if my colleagues want to add anything to that, or if I should just bring a motion.
You can go to a motion, I think.
Go to a motion.
Conditions, right?
Yep. Well, I haven't brought a motion yet, so I'd like to bring a motion forward for approval of the consent, and that it be subject to the standard conditions for consent and the conditions set out in the development engineering memo. I believe those are applied to the consent. I don't know if the transportation conditions go on the consent or the variances. I don't know if
It's
it's,
the consent. It's the consent.
okay, so that would be the consent condition, transportation conditions would go on the consent as well. Do you want to hear a motion for the variances, Mr. Chair, or are we just dealing with one and then the other?
In this case, they are being dealt with them, we can deal with them as one. We can deal with them as
Okay.
one motion.
Okay, and then a motion for approval for both lots for the variances.
So that's all one motion, is to approve the consent and the two minor variants.
Don't think I
Yeah,
missed any conditions, yeah.
thank you. Ms. Chan? Second?
A second.
Second, okay. Moved and seconded to approve the consent and the associated minor variance applications. Those in favor, subject as stated by by Ms. Valentini, those in favor, show of hands, unanimous. Motion is carried. The consent and the two minor variance applications are approved. And the panel moves along to number 42.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, we'll also remove the term undersized as part of that purpose.
Yes. Thank you. On number 42, the panel has before it minutes from the August 26th public hearing. Applicants submitted materials. We have photographs, 7 of them, submitted by the applicants. Received in November 2019. There's a covering letter from the applicants received also 2019. And correspondence from the applicant June 21. Commenting reports, there is. An email from Transportation Services, 17 June. Another from another part of Transportation, also 17 June. There are staff reports from Transportation dated June 10 and June 29. And staff report from Urban Forestry. In terms of correspondence, there is one piece of correspondence only. It is in support, and it comes from 131 Balmoral. There is also late arriving correspondence received yesterday from 110 Balmoral from Amy Shepherd. Okay. And here we shall ask the agent to join us, please, in the meeting by stating your name.
Constance Dingle. I'm the owner of 135 Balmoral. And the information that you were reciting actually has been updated. So this has been a little bit of a long journey for me. It was started, as you stated, in like 2018, with the beginning 2018. But I'm just concerned because the dates that I have listed on the file, let's see, my cover letter is dated February 12th, 2020. And so I just want to make sure that you've got the right information, because I did submit an application prior, and then because the Mr. Pellegrini, who was the supervisor for transport, he left, I submitted a new application in like 2019 maybe. So I just want to make sure that you have the
Well, just to be,
second round. I'm
of course,
sorry to be.
the members of the panel, of course, they have access to the document, to the information I've described to you. But what we are dealing with here is today's application, today's agenda, and it involves the 3 variances. So just so you know, the 3 things that the the panel really have authority to decide upon are those three variances that are proposed. And if they have any questions for you about what's been submitted to them, they'll have an opportunity to ask you right now. So
So
panel,
I also wanted to clarify that you said that there was only one letter of support, but if you open that file that says support, it's got 11 neighbors actually.
oh, it's a petition. Okay, it doesn't show that. I show correspondence from Amy Shepherd, 110 Balmoral, and also
Yeah.
from Shauna and Jeff Citron at 131 Balmoral.
Yes, exactly. And then if you go back to let's see, hold on, let me just, correspondence owner. It's letters of support. It's on, for lack of a better reference, it says showing 11 to 20 entries. I believe it's like the 20 or the 18th entry. It's dated February 12th on the file, 2020. And there are letters from 118, 129, 130, 131, 137, 138, 139, 144, 146, 134, 141, in support.
Thank you very much. That's you have substantial support then.
Yes.
Okay, let's see if the panel has any questions for you. Panel, questions for the owner applicant? Hearing none, we can.
So and the other thing I just wanted to double check, the transportation report was supporting. So I just want to make sure that you guys are looking at the same transportation report that I'm looking at.
Okay, we're going to take the application now into committee, which means your input will need to be held, and so panel, application here to permit a front. Basically, we're legalizing a parking pad if we approve this, and those are the three variances that apply. And there is a transportation condition that transportation would like to see applied if we were to approve. So, any thoughts on this application, or do we move to a motion?
I can jump in. With all the support in the neighborhood, I think that is a very straightforward application. I move for approval subject to forestry condition 1.
Thank you very much. Is there a transportation condition or not?
I don't think so. I think that after approval, they just have to apply for permit. Isn't it not?
So there.
I think that's what the condition says, but
They have to apply. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I would think that transportation report of that's May 2020. Huh. Yeah, the two transportation reports are both a year and a half old. So, why don't we go ahead with your motion as it stands? Your motion is to approve subject to forestry. Is there a second for that motion?
I just want to, if I could jump in, why do we feel that the transportation condition requiring that she secure and maintain the front yard parking license for the one space, why is that a concern? I mean, I know she probably hasn't, but anyway.
Well,
I don't know if the Deputy Secretary Treasurer can speak to whether a condition is still, valid or required.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't see an issue with including that as part of the condition.
Okay. The So we've been advised by the Deputy Secretary Treasurer that no issue to include reference to those May 2020 transportation staff reports. Might be a good idea to do so. In fact, we probably should. So my suggestion would be to add them to the approval.
The latest that I have on file here, I believe, is June 10th, 2020, so you may want to refer to that one.
Okay. There's a June 10, 2020?
Yes, that's correct.
Why don't we refer to the June 10, 2020 transportation staff report?
Okay. All right, so I'll add that to my motion.
Thank you. Does that motion have a second? It does. Ms. Valentini. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands. That motion carries, and the application is approved. And with that, panel moves on to the last item on today's agenda, which is '82 Dixon. On this application, panel has before it minutes from the July 7, 2021 public hearing and a copy of revised materials submitted by the applicant. And on this application, Mr. Speaker, do we have anyone registered as in opposition?
Mr. Chair, we did, but we've called and emailed them, and they're not here with us.
They're not there. Okay, you have tried. I would know to
Hello?
make contact. So is that the agent?
Hello?
Is that the agent?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I'm here, yeah.
Okay, if you're the agent, join us please by stating your name.
Okay, my name is Nikita Matarski, and I'm speaking on behalf of the owners of the property located at 82 Dixon Avenue.
Thank you very much. Okay. Very good. Okay. So, there's no one speaking in opposition. So, panel, any questions for this agent? Go ahead. Okay, so I have a question for you, agent. Since the deferral in July, can you tell us what changes, if any, have been made to the application?
Actually, there are no any changes. The problem with the old application was that in the description and in all the documentation, for some reason, like it was said that there is a front and a rear dormer. However, for this project we have only a rear dormer. And because of that, we got a deferral, and yeah, like we've been waiting like for like additional like a month or so like to get approved again.
Okay, so in that time, in those 2 months or 3 months, have you submitted revised? There have been revised elevations submitted.
No, it was only the zoning notice, and yeah, it was the updated zoning notice, and I guess maybe some other documents, but for the drawings, no, nothing. It's all the same.
Okay. Other questions, panel? Okay, then. If there are no further questions, I'll look to panel to move to a motion, please. Mr. Chen, go ahead.
The motion to approve the application. Is any, I don't find any
Okay, I don't believe that it's subject.
I don't see there's any condition.
I think it's a condition. Okay, and seconded by Ms. Chan. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, Show of hands. The motion is carried by a unanimous vote, and the application is approved. So with that,
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
and to you, with that at 7:36, we are terminating the hearing. And my thanks, as always, to panel members for their preparation, their focus over a long 10-hour day, and their determination to get the job done, and also to staff for flawless support and, as the guy said, the Vanna White performance on the on the pointer. Very good. So the hearing is terminated. Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you,
evening,
everybody.
everyone.
Have a good night.
Have a good evening, everyone.